Hey everybody, Professor Snart checking in as we get out of Unit 1 and into Unit 2 in our course here. So just double checking the due dates. So we've just finished up Unit 1, pretty simple, just having you do introductions and that kind of thing. Looking at Unit 2, the due date then is Thursday, January 23rd. So again, you want to make it a habit to check the due dates, not just for the very next one, but maybe scan a few ahead just to see how they break down. Some I've tried to keep it as kind of regular as possible, but you'll notice that some are a little quicker than others depending on what we're doing in that unit. So in Unit 2 then, which I'll just click myself into, we kind of get into a little bit more of the content of the course and less of that very general like introductory stuff, but it's still fairly broad in terms of what we're looking at here. There's a very basic thing on avoiding plagiarism, which is clearly huge for us. The temptation to plagiarize seems to catch people just at the worst time, and obviously the policy is here, you know, don't plagiarize. It's never any different. The issue of plagiarism, I think, is sometimes made out to be this very gray area, like, well, it's sometimes, you know, it's hard to tell what's plagiarism, what's not. It really isn't. It's black and white. And if you ever have any questions about that, be sure to ask. One of the things that we spend a lot of time in this course is dealing with MLA citation, so basically proper citation of sources. So plagiarism doesn't mean you never use the work or the words of another in your essay, for example. In fact, the requirement throughout our course is that you use quotation from primary or secondary sources. But of course, what makes that not plagiarism is foregrounding the fact that you're incorporating that into your essay and then using correct citation, whether it's in the text or with the work cited, the two pieces of MLA citation that we'll be looking at. So a very quick overview within the unit here, but something that we'll obviously be returning to, if not directly in the form of plagiarism, then more likely in the form of correct citation. You can see how those two things are linked together. A very kind of general exercise in literary terminology. Again, there's a quiz attached to it, but it's very low point value. So I'm less concerned that you be able to define perfectly what setting or character or symbolism or some of those typical literary terms are. What's really more important is that you have a good kind of working vocabulary that you can then use to be an effective reader of the texts that we read in class, and of course an effective writer because you're using that terminology to talk about particular aspects of the short stories or plays that we're looking at for the course. And then a brief discussion board here asking you to respond to the first textbook reading for the class, which has you just looking at the introduction in the textbook, but kind of that overarching question of like, what is literature? What does that term even mean? So relatively limited point value, but good to sort of get us into that kind of frame of mind where we're using literary terms, thinking about this kind of writing and how we can respond to it and that sort of thing, which is of course where part of our course will get to, in addition to, of course, the composition or the writing side of it, which is part of what we begin to get into in later units, like Unit 3 even has us really starting to develop or look at some of the basic kind of writing concepts or ideas that we'll look at for the course. Okay, so you can find the grades that you got for the exercises or the requirements from the first unit. If you didn't get full points, there's a couple of likely possibilities. You either didn't do it on time, or you didn't follow the directions and maybe provide a picture in your home page that shows up as a picture, or maybe on the discussion board you posted yours but you didn't respond, stuff like that. So you can by all means be in touch with me to figure out what went wrong, if anything did. But first, just, you know, you can sort of self-check those really obvious things. Was it on time, and did it fulfill the requirements? So easy enough. As I think I've mentioned before, but reiterate again, the grading for those kinds of things is like 10 points, 20 points, and that's out of 1,000. So it's not a huge part of the grade, although it's sort of free money when you think about how easy it is in most cases. Really, the big point value are in the major writing assignments that we're doing. So if you lost points maybe early on in the course like this, you got 5 out of 10 or 10 out of 20, I would be less concerned about the points because overall, percentage-wise, probably not a big deal. I'd be a little more concerned if you lost points because you simply didn't read directions carefully and follow the directions, because that's the kind of thing where if it impacts the major assignments that we're doing, the writing assignments, then instead of losing 5 or 10 points, you're losing quite a bit more than that if you're not following the basic guidelines. Even if what you produce, like an essay, is terrific, but it's totally off topic, doesn't have the research requirements, doesn't just fulfill the other expectations or requirements for that assignment, I grade based on those requirements, not on some other set of like, is this a great essay on why we should save the whales? If that's not the kind of essay we're writing, then you get the picture. So use the first few units here kind of as a learning opportunity where if things do go a little bit wrong, not so much to concern yourself with the points, 5 points or 10 points here or there, but really to remind yourself that careful reading of the instructions is, it's crucial in any class, but clearly in the online environment, it really matters. Since we don't have that repetitive kind of face-to-face situation where I can remind you of things or point things out or just whatever the case might be. Okay, so as always, if you have any questions or concerns, be in touch with me. But otherwise, be sure you're checking your grade, get on top of the work then for Unit 2, and I will talk to everybody soon.